Hey, what's up guys? Thanks for joining me in the garage today. We're actually going to be working underneath the hood of my 1993 Nissan 300ZX. Show you a few things you can do to keep your car running better. If you ever performed this service, it probably needs one, but it hasn't been done in a long time. So underneath the hood of our 300ZX, we have our BG30. We're going to be looking at a couple things that we can do to the engine that are easy, you can do, and don't cost a lot of money, and can really help you solve any drivability issues and prevent some in the future. And how are you going to do that, you might ask? Well, we're going to do that with these little guys right here. Every 300ZX owner probably needs to put a new set of plugs in their car. We'll pull our old plugs out, take a look at it, see if there's anything concerning. While we're in there working on the motor, I'll show you one other thing you can keep an eye out for, start replacing to keep any drivability issues off your mind and out of this car. And trust me, you need to do all you can to make sure the maintenance is up on your now 34-year-old Nissan 300ZX. All right guys, so on this engine, our spark plugs are gonna be right down in here. We've got our coil packs that bolt up to our intake manifold. And we got 1, 2, and then the third one is gonna be underneath our balance tube. So unfortunately, to do this service, we are gonna have to remove the balance tube, but that's okay because we're gonna do some preventative maintenance on this and some of these vacuum lines to make sure everything's in order and you don't have any brittle vacuum lines that are giving you drivability issues. Now, to do this service, we just really need the basic hand tools. We need a 3/8 ratchet. Let's go ahead and get a longer extension. And then this is a 5/8 spark plug socket. These are great because they're perfectly designed for spark plugs. Sit in there, and it's got a tight little seal because it's got a gasket in here, a little rubber O-ring, grabs the spark plug. It's not just a 5/8 socket. This is specifically designed for spark plugs. We'll also need a 12mm socket to release those coil packs from the intake manifold. I'll put some link in the description for these tools and plugs, so make sure if you don't have this in your set of tools, we'll get your toolbox fitted up. It always makes performing any service much easier if you have the right tools to accomplish it. All right, well, here's a good example. The first one we took off, part of the coil did not come out, a little extension that clips on to the spark plug. So if this happens to you, well, this is what happens working on cars. It doesn't always go as planned. So we have to pull that out, which shouldn't be too bad. It does separate right there. But as you can see, boom, there we go. This is where the right tools for the job come in. I can get in, and I think these guys will do it. See, we've got all kinds of different pliers for hoses and stuff. You gotta have an assortment of some of this stuff. There we go. Now, no big deal here. This just pops back together. Oh, that's what it's supposed to look like when you pull it out. All right, guys, if you watched our last video where I talked about the intake manifold and taking some stuff off, we identified the cylinders for the firing order. So we're actually gonna pull the plugs that same way and then identify them each so we know if cylinder 1 or cylinder 2, cylinder 3 or cylinder 4, which cylinder we need to be referring to if we have an issue. So we're gonna go ahead and start on the right side right here, pull cylinder 1 plug and see what it looks like.
Perfect.
All right, guys, we got to get this balance tube off here. We've got two 12mm bolts on that side, a vacuum line that goes to one of our fuel pressure regulators, a vacuum line that goes to the idle air control on the back of the motor. Then we got three 12mm bolts on this side and a bracket. And we'll be able to lift that out of place and access cylinder 5 and 6. All right, so when we go to take off that balance tube, we do have to know that there's little O-rings inside of there that seal up the balance tube to the intake manifold. And we're gonna need to replace them when we put everything back together, so we don't have a vacuum leak there. So just be aware of that before you yank that bad boy off. We will have to reseal it. Now here's some of those vacuum line hoses. I've already went through and replaced this on my car when I serviced it last time. But these will be brittle and break, crack, split, and then give you weird drivability issues that are really tricky to track down, because you'll be chasing something and it might be a hard to see little split in your vacuum line here. Disconnect this vacuum line on the back of the balancing tube that goes to the back of the motor here. It gets pretty tight back here. We've got it loose. We might have to wait till we're pulling it off to slide it out of the way. 3 bolts, 12 millimeter. All right guys, so here's a look at our balance tube off of the car. Just some porting tubes that help keep the intake manifold balanced, pressures on both sides, and feed some vacuum lines off. We got 1, 2, 3 vacuum lines that this feeds. Now we open up our back 2 cylinders. It's still kind of buried under here, but we'll move some of that wiring harness around. And then on this side, we'll just have to work around this fuel pressure regulator. And another thing I want to talk about as I was going here is see these connectors. I mean, they're going to be brittle and old, and they're going to come apart. I mean, let's just be honest. That's just how it works. Just be aware that a lot of the connectors on the OEM wiring harness are going to be brittle and start to break apart as we mess with stuff on the engine, take it apart, put it back together. If you have a 90 Nissan 300ZX, it's literally 34 years old at this point. But that's for another topic. Just want to point that out since we are in there disconnecting coils. The connectors are probably going to break. All right, guys. Well, we have all of our plugs pulled out, laid out, numbered by cylinder. Exposed cylinder openings closed up. But I wanted to show you this last one. Just going to see what we're looking at here. Right there, this black big plastic piece that's there, that is the spark plug tube cover. Now it isolates each one of the spark plugs and seals it off. There's some seals. As you can see down in this one, it's nice and clean, clear. There's no debris down there and no oil down there. Now, if your valve covers are leaking, it's gonna be full of oil. You'll see a lot of oil residue, sludge down there. If you're seeing that when you pull your spark plugs out, you got a problem, and your valve covers need to be done ASAP. Otherwise, no matter what spark plugs you put in there or what you do to it, they're gonna get fouled out by the oil coming in. All right, guys, so we've got all of our spark plugs pulled and numbered per cylinder. That way we can diagnose any problem. Now, honestly, these all look pretty good. We don't see any oil fouling. Don't see any just random soot deposits. Nothing looks overheated. It looks just to have our normal wear and tear that we would want to see on a spark plug. Now, something interesting to note is on this number 4, we can see on our insulator there, we have some light tan staining where the insulator meets the body of the spark plug there. And we can see that evident on this number 4 and over here on number 6. And then even a little bit, just a tiny little bit on number 2. This is a good reason why we numbered everything out, so we know number 2, 4, and 6 all live on the left bank of this engine. And what this usually is a sign of, it's a high buildup of static electricity that's attracting dirt and oil residue and then making it stain. We'll see that when a spark plug tube seals might be going bad. And so we know number 6 and 4, dirt and residue. And then, yeah, as we can see down there, there's some oil residue and dirt right down at the very base there from when I put new spark plug tube seals in this, when I had it all apart. We see some oil and residue there. So that's probably causing the buildup of that tan coloring on the insulator of our plugs. And let's check over here. Oh, we can see the same thing down there. There's just some leftover debris. We don't have any new oil, but there's definitely some leftover dirt and whatnot from before. We diagnosed a little bit. Everything looks good. We're gonna go ahead and change our plugs anyways, because that's what we're doing here. This is a good little maintenance, and then if you see anything going on your car, you'll be able to diagnose it yourself, get it changed, and get your 300ZX running efficiently.
Perfect.
Spark plugs here, and honestly, most spark plugs nowadays come pre-gapped. But let's get these installed. Let's go ahead and start with our first cylinder and work our way across. All right, there's our coil packs, boys. That's the last one. We'll throw some bolts in here and get these connectors back connected up. All right, and see guys, most of those, they just kind of laid right where they went to. We couldn't really put any of them in different spots there. So just when you're doing your wiring, you wanna make sure you get them pushed in all the way. So we got our bolts tightened down for our coil packs in place, and then now we gotta put on our balance tube and then hook up the rest of our vacuum lines. And right now it'd be a great time to replace any of these broken, brittle, old vacuum lines. I mean, if you haven't replaced them already, I would go ahead and replace them. As we take them off, we just go ahead and replace them, because and then anything else, it's called preventative maintenance, and you might actually be fixing a problem you don't even know you have. So I'll put links in the description below for the different sizes that the 300ZX needs, and then just some different vacuum tube that you can use to replace it on yours. Highly suggest replacing all your vacuum lines and saving a ton of headache down the road. All right, this is our last piece of hose here. Boom. Boom. So much better when it's not brittle and breaking. New and flexible. Perfect. All right, guys, we got it all put back together. Connectors, everything should be as it is. We gotta do one last thing. We gotta start it and make sure we don't have any issues. Make sure we put it back together correctly and be on our way. mission accomplished. We didn't even forget to hook anything back up. So good job, everybody. How many questions? Hit me in the comments down below about this service, or what other services do you guys want to see done on the 300ZX? We can do whatever to this. So if there's something out there you want to just see me do, put it in the comments down below. Might make a video of it. Then you guys would did it. So congratulations. You changed the spark plugs in your 300ZX, or at least you know how. If you just got a 300ZX, or if you got one a while ago and you never did this, or you don't know if it's ever been done, it's probably a good thing to go ahead and knock out, get it out of the way. Just FYI, you open up those spark plugs and you see a lot of oil and stuff in there. Valve covers need to be done. It's just the nature of the beast. Part of having an older car, pretty much the list of stuff to do never gets smaller. All right, guys, if you are curious about what makes a 2JZ so special, or what's inside of one, or you just want to tear apart a motor for fun, we're gonna be breaking this down right here. This is a 2001 2JZ GE engine out of a Lexus GS300. We're gonna tear it down and take a peek at some of the parts on it. I invite you to join me on that journey. Until then, we'll see some more 300ZX content multiple times every week. We'll go shopping for them, and we'll do different projects that we got going on in here. Whew, this is a busted up connector.